It took me 40 plus years to realize what I'm about to tell you in the next few minutes. A total reset, not by choice, because my body decided to speak. In fact, it decided to scream, not because I was weak, but because I was exhausted and my body was just so tired of the years of silence, of resentment, of anger, of anxiety, of that little girl since a very young age who I was, decided that she wanted to please everyone and she wanted everyone to love her, and she was not being herself because of that. So yeah, I went through a major reset in my relationships, my environment, my identity. And in this video, I'm going to share with you my journey, but it definitely can be your journey too. Because maybe you're wondering, how many more years can you live this way? For me, here is how it all began. From a very young age, I was really afraid to disappoint my parents, my teachers, my friends. I would always listen to what my parents would say, while trying not to upset them too much. At school, I would always do what the teacher would say, even though I didn't actually always agree with them. And with my friends, I would definitely side on their end, even if sometimes they would say stuff that didn't fit with what I believed. But out of loyalty, I decided to agree with them. I wanted to do everything right. I didn't want to disagree. I didn't want to confront people. I didn't want to upset people. I was so afraid of conflict. And I realized that eventually this came at a cost, and it costed dearly. I had this strange belief that other people were better, that their opinion mattered more. I was definitely a follower, not a leader. And out of following people, then I was starting to be more and more disconnected from myself. And this is where the problem all started. Hi, my name is Fabienne Raphael, and I created this channel, What Feeds You Defines You, out of a big realization I had when my body crashed last year. I realized that the way I was living was not sustainable, and I want to inspire you to actually be more intentional about what your mind, body, and soul consumes, and that it has a direct effect on the way you live your life, how happy you feel, and the people that you attract in your life, and the opportunities that you attract in your life. So I'm a lifelong learner. I'm just sharing my journey with you, and hopefully this inspires you and makes you want to take that first step into really owning who you are and expressing that person, that unique gem that you are for our world. The older I became, the more disconnected from my true self that I was, because the more I would say yes to people when I felt like saying no, the more that I would agree with things which deep down inside I didn't agree with, the more I would do stuff out of what people expected of me instead of really doing stuff because that's what I truly wanted to do. I was living in my head a lot. I was overthinking. I was living in anxiety. I was having conversations in my head way before they would happen. And in fact, I would often convince myself not to go into a conversation because of all the scenarios I had done in my head way before that conversation happened. I was avoiding all types of conflict, confrontation, conversation, even though I was afraid of losing people when I didn't agree with someone else. So I preferred to agree with people instead of having, those deep, serious and honest conversations. And that made me more and more disconnected with myself. Then my body clearly spoke to me. It screamed, it crashed, cancer. That diagnosis was, let's say, there was a big duality in how I felt about it. Of course, there was a lot of fear about am I gonna die? Is this curable? Am I gonna heal from this? But also at the same time, clarity, understanding why it happened to me, why it hit me in the face like that. Because I guess that I needed that type of wake-up call to understand where I was going with the way I was living, which was not sustainable and which would have probably led me to other type of problem, probably mental health problems or another way of my body crashing. I remember I watched Mel Robbins' podcast, and the guest was Mark Nepo, and he's the author of the Book of Awakening, and I read the story every morning. And he said during that interview that when he had gone through cancer and he was going through his last chemo treatment, he felt like when he opened the door out of leaving this chemo treatment, it was like an opportunity for him to start again. And that's definitely how I felt when I heard him say that. I was like, yeah, this was for me an opportunity to live again and to rebirth as the new me, as this new version of me who I decided to be, instead of still wondering what would people say or how they would react about the way I decide to live, the way I decide to be, the way I decide to just go on in my life. So cancer to me was not a punishment. It was a new chance, another chance, an invitation. So cancer to me was not a punishment. It was definitely an invitation. In fact, let me read this because it's important. You can't go back to who you were, but you get to choose who you want to become. You can't go back to who you were, but you can choose who you want to become. The biggest reset I had to go through was my mindset. After I got surgery, I literally hated my body. I had always been someone who was muscular, athletic, and just in shape, right? And coming out of this surgery and this illness, I became very thin. I had a lot of scars. I had no energy. My muscles, they all melted. And I felt unrecognizable when I was looking at myself in the mirror. In fact, I couldn't see myself in the mirror. I couldn't even watch all this part of my body. It was impossible to do so in the mirror. I hated seeing myself like that. And then eventually, with learning how to be grateful for the fact that I was given a second chance to life, I started recognizing that those scars, they were not a disadvantage. In fact, the scars, they were proof of my survival, in that the body that I had before, the athletic body and muscular body, allowed me to go through this challenge the best way possible, because I recovered quite quickly after surgery and I was able to go back to my activities like not so long after everything happened. In other words, I had to relearn to love my body and to love myself with the best intention possible. So I got new clothes with, things that fit my new body, more colors, and started rebuilding my muscles with some exercises, and just to be grateful more for the body that brought me through all of this on the other side of this, and to give me that chance of a new beginning. The big thing that I worked on for my mindset and that I'm still working on is to be still. That's actually what's written on my on the first page of my journal. Be still. I learned to meditate, to breathe like deeply with my diaphragm, not like superficially with just these muscles over here, and just learning how to exist without performance, without performing, without putting on a show and making sure that, I'm doing something like very meaningful. I am doing stuff that is meaningful, but sometimes now I allow myself just to breathe and just to relax and just be still and just be aware of the chance that I have to be alive and to feel and to hear and to witness all these beautiful things in life. I also had to change my internal dialogue, stop blaming myself, or stop feeling guilty, or stop rethinking about the past mistakes and how angry I was at myself, or how I was comparing myself with others. Listening to Jay Shetty, he actually said something in a podcast episode I listened to not a long time ago, and it was about the podcast about gratefulness, and he was just sharing how comparison should be only between your old self and yourself today. And so that's what I am trying my best to practice nowadays, because I won't be lying to you. Sometimes it's hard. I mean, you're catapulted with so many things around you, and I just go on my computer and something pops, and it has to do with someone else doing something that I might want to be doing, but I'm not doing yet. And yet all the opportunities are there for you to be envious or to just see what people are doing, which is something that you want to do. But then again, like, try to remind yourself where you were last year at this exact period. Last year, at this exact period, for myself, I had just learned that I had cancer and I had to go through surgery and all that stuff. And so if I compare myself from today from who I was last year, I feel better, I feel happier, I feel with more strength, I feel with more purpose, and I'm grateful that I got to experience everything that I experienced in order to get to where I am today. This morning I was reading Gabrielle Bernstein, a spirit junkie, and I was in the chapter about the ego, and she was expressing how the ego is destructive and how the ego sometimes says stuff to your inner self that is totally wrong and not true, and that we have to regroup and think about, this is not true. I'm not operating out of love over there, because our bodies are extension of God or of source. It's meant to love and to burst with love and to be embraced with love. And when the ego is trying to destroy you, it's nothing about love, it's about destruction. And I'm sharing that with you because it happened to me lately. I was going through something, and there was this small test I had to do. And my first attempt to that test, I failed. And for the whole night after that test, I just was not sleeping well. And my brain, my ego kept on sending these signals of all the memories I had of prior projects that didn't work, or prior things I wasn't proud of, or situations where I wasn't my best self. And my ego is just trying to confirm the fact that, hey, you failed that test because remember in the past how many times you failed at doing this. And thank you to reading this book, because the morning after, I really took some time to acknowledge what was happening and to realize the disconnect that there was, that this voice was not the real voice. This voice was not operating out of love, it was operating out of destruction. And soon after I regrouped and after I really centered myself and went back to understanding that, hey, there were so many more situations in my life where I was happy, successful, and did projects that worked, help people evolve and help others in the best way possible. I retook that test, and just like that, it was just success again. And just because my brain, my ego wanted to make me fail, make me not succeed. And I'm grateful that, first of all, I was reading this book, and second of all, that I had the awareness to recognize that. And this is something that you can do especially to change your mindset, recognizing that this inner voice that is trying to bring you down is 99% of the time not saying the truth and not operating into with love in mind. It's operating with destruction in mind, and it's not good for you. So that's the shift that you have to do, and that's a major shift, and it's hard. It's not easy because the ego is stubborn and it will still try to bring you down each and every single day. It's a daily work, but it's totally worth it, because when you do something and then you realize that your work is working, your mindset shift is working, it brings you joy. It actually builds your self-confidence even more. There's something else that I'm doing in order to be better at seeing the best things in life instead of operating in a mood or in a feeling of, oh, I want this, I don't have that, or this is where I want to go, but I'm not there yet, is having a gratitude bucket. I have that, and in fact, I can show you. It's right there. And so here's my bucket and all these little papers. things that I'm grateful for. So every day I take a piece of paper, I write the date, and I write what I'm grateful for. And probably in the first January 1st, I would take some time to open them all and see all the things I was grateful for 2025. I also wrote a gratefulness letter to someone I love and gave it to them. I also wrote a grateful letter to the old version of myself. And I think I got that from both Mel Robbins and Jay Shetty's episodes. And this is amazing. If you've never done that experience, I really encourage you to do so, because when you write and you are grateful for something, your whole energy shifts. It's as if you get enlightened and you see everything around you, like you trying to recognize all the things that are going well and all the things that you're grateful for, instead of thinking about what you're lacking or what you want or where you're not at yet, right? And it's an incredible feeling. It gives you an energy shift for sure. So when you're doing all that work, like all that mindset work, and your identity is shifting because you're stepping into that new you, then you're able to set more boundaries. The relationships that you have in your life are better, more stable, more, let's say, what you deserve to have, and you attract the right people, the right opportunities. But the best the best change is the relationship that you have with yourself. The person that you spend the most time with it's not your spouse, not your kids, not your coworkers, it's yourself and your inner dialogue. So when you're able to work on that in the best way possible, the first person to feel the change, of course, is going to be you. So the big lesson here is just take care of yourself. Not because you're selfish, because you're the first person responsible of loving yourself. Nobody will do it for you. You won't be able to help others, you won't be able to serve others if you are empty, or if you don't feel whole, or if you are operating out of lack. It's not gonna happen. It's just gonna bring you more frustration. And that learning is a lifelong journey. You'll be more and more able to listen to your own voice, to yourself, to your needs. And some days you'll get it right. Some days it'll be more challenging, and it's okay, because you know what? You're a human being. And humans, they make mistakes, and it's fine. Making mistakes is just normal. Nobody's perfect. So be patient and be compassionate, because you are becoming someone new. When you're committed into becoming someone new, it takes time, it takes courage, it takes love, and you know what? You deserve all three. Watch my next video about why you keep settling for a life you hate. You'll learn about the traps that you fall into and how to fix these traps so you can live a more fulfilled life.